I would say that the team that disappointed me the most, and this may be unfair, but FaZe, I did have pretty high hopes and high expectations for that team given the experience on the roster and the firepower that's still on that roster as well. I thought that they had what it took to at least make top 8. So when they didn't make top 8, they didn't get into the quarterfinals. Because that, talking about LAN players, right? There are players on that team where I think had they been in front of an audience, we could have seen an extra gear, kick in, Olaf Meister, etc. Right? I feel like we could have seen that little extra something from them, and maybe that would have been enough for FaZe to get some upsets and get rolling deeper into the playoffs. So I am disappointed not to see FaZe make it out of the groups. I think there could have been something truly magical there had they made it to the stage, and we didn't get to see that. So that's a tough one. But the other team that really, I suppose, met expectations, right? Because you'd expect them to do well, is Heroic, right? Or over-exceeded expectations, I suppose, because there was a lot of question marks around Heroic and what those players would bring to the table on LAN, on the stage, TSS, etc., right? Where they've shown nerves in the past, they've shown that perhaps LAN, they still need time to develop. And it turns out that no, they've thrived in the environment. Everybody steps up there. Heroic are still playing their game. There's no obvious weak spots in that roster to take advantage of. Everybody has clutch moments. They're playing Heroic's CS, that we've seen the same CS over the past couple of years that's seen so much success for them. They're bringing it right here onto LAN. So if anything, Heroic, I'm most surprised by them because I legitimately thought that Heroic would take a bit of a dive and that we would see a dip in their performance. And instead, they look just fine. So Heroic, I'd say, are probably like the meeting expectations.
Annetaan Bitille leijoniin. Se on pelannut ihan järkyttävän hyvin. Se on melkein MVP-kandidaatti, jolla ei ole simpleä tuolla eka iso laniturnaus, mitä se on 18-vuotias pelannut jengistä vasta puoli vuotta. Lammas on vaikeampi, koska ne lampaat varmaan tippu lohkoissa ja siitä on jo pari viikkoa nyt. Joutuu ehkä vähän enemmän miettimään. Liquid varmaan voisi olla. Et niiltä odotti aika moni, että niillä olisi ollut mahikset top 4. Että niillä oli aika kokenut rosteri, hyviä pelaajia, ne oli bootcampannut aika pitkään, ne oli näyttänyt aika hyvältä tässä viime aikoina. Että ne varmaan oli yksi isoimmista alisuoriutujista odotuksiin nähden.
100% Copper and Flames. I think everyone enjoyed their storylines to come into this major, and we're really close to actually going to the Legend stage, like the playoffs. And I think everyone would say that. As a sheep one, I think it's kind of hard, but probably Mouse. I think it's also like a sheep stories, but I think there's more teams. But Mouse, I feel like they're a team that should be in the playoffs, but they had a rough patch to actually go into this, and it was shown a lot, and it was like, they need to figure it out a little bit more, but they're still a good team, but they didn't impress me that much, to be honest, and that's sad because Robs is amazing. Robs is so good, so we'll see in the future, I guess.
The line, obviously, Copenhagen Flames and Entropic, two teams, really talented. I know Entropic personally, really nice, hardworking guys, and as a sheep, Liquid, probably Liquid. They won us before the major on Blast Qualifier. I expected more of them, but they just didn't perform.
Can I start with disappointment? Okay. Disappointing, I would go with Spirit, because for me, coming out of the player break in the middle of the year, they were playing a lot of games, a lot of online stuff. They were streaming a lot, and they looked like individually they were working hard. And I think that the recipe of the team with the talent that they had, I think it was pretty good. So for me to see them fall flat out of the break and now come into the major and fall flat again and now disintegrate as a roster, that for me is the disappointment of the tournament, just because I personally had high hopes for them. Whether that was misguided or not, that was my pick for a team that could have been a bit of a dark horse here. In terms of like performed up to par or performed up to what we would expect, I think we could probably go back to that online conversation we were just having. Heroic are now performing much more like they do online. So they're not expected to get through to this position, but they're performing how we would want them to. So they're one of the names there. And then you can obviously throw in Gambit in that same conversation, right? Without the online attack, but more in the sense of we want to see them being a solid force throughout Counter-Strike, right? Because the type of Counter-Strike they play and the type of players they have, they should be, and they are. So it'll be those two for me. I think, for example, in Tropic with Elian, right, we saw him a couple of years ago, and now he's really impressed here, right? So as an individual, great stuff from them. I'm really impressed with the Flames because their storyline is great. They're an academy team, basically, right? I know Copenhagen Flames isn't an academy org, but they're like one to nurture the future of Danish talent. They come in here, they come through the open qualifier, right, for the RMR events. They come, and then they go into closed qualifier. They're able to qualify there. They go through in the RMR event, right, undefeated in their group. Their story is amazing, and the fact that they carried it through, I doubted them every step of the way. And that's why just the type of CS they played. The individuals all stepping up, right? We saw Roy early was really good. Nikodos started to come alive. Then Yabi decided he was going to be sick as well. I think that the entire team there impressed me a lot.